morning. Welcome to Talking Racine, episode 91. This is Mr. George Myers.
Morning.
My friend and associate to my left. And Mr. Jim Spodek, record-setting producer.
Yeah, record-setting.
And I'm Dr. Ken Jorgen, your host. Now, last week, we promised you that we would delve into a topic that would be of interest to you after something that happened midweek. And what happened midweek was a court appearance with our favorite alderman as the guest of the court, Sandy Weidner. And she had been charged with contempt of court. And the three of us, along with several other citizens, were down there to observe, because this is a very interesting case. It's about secrecy in government, for one thing. You know, I mean, open records requests should be honored. And in this particular case, it's very questionable about why they are not being provided to people who request them. So we're pursuing that.
Yeah, it gets even more confusing when you consider, I mean, we know everything, all the documents that are in that case that are sealed.
Right.
They were some of them we received. I mean, that was one of the objections to the whole process is nefarious people like Jim Spodek had received the email.
I think you were included in that nefarious case.
Yeah, nefarious. What? No, I'm not nefarious.
You two, not me.
No, so we know it was all there, and it was very confusing to me because we knew what it was. The case went to court because Alderman Weidner wanted the PowerPoint presentation of the emails, because she'd seen them, but she wanted to make sure she had it right which ones were in that PowerPoint presentation. Of all the many emails she's received throughout the year, she needed that. But she'd known what they were there.
Well, you know? And again, to refresh the memory of the viewers, the PowerPoint presentation was used as evidence, I guess you would say.
That's exactly right.
In a complaint against her, in an attempt to besmirch her character, really, in my opinion.
To the ethics committee, that's
and,
right.
And make a referral to the ethics committee.
And so she's fighting this besmirching to the ethics committee, and one of the things she needed was the PowerPoint presentation, which the city attorney refused to give her. Now, we knew all this before they went to case. Right. I just like to say, we are not giving you any information. Sandy's not giving us any information that occurred after the case was sealed. This we knew beforehand, and we knew she was going to court as a process to get those emails as just part of the discovery process. So all of that was open, and then it all gets sealed, and I'm confused. Why was it sealed? We knew what was there. It was not.
Well, it's an attempt to shut down the entire discussion, basically, is what it is. And the interesting thing is that in October of 2015, on the 15th and on the 29th of October, there were two articles written 3 years ago.
2015, 3 years ago.
Which really laid out a lot more of the detail of this case than we've ever revealed, and it was in the newspaper, you know. And they've been consistently trying to shut this off. And Sandy never really had been trying to make a public disclosure. She was attempting to get the city council to deal with a situation that was dangerous to the city in terms of a liability sense.
Exactly, and that was. We can be specific about it. I mean,
it was an employee that apparently failed his initial drug test to be hired as an employee.
Right.
And headline.
Drug
test failure.
Yeah. So he fails. Apparently, some information was given to the alderman, not just Sandy, but a number of them. It went to a Finance and Personnel Committee. They buried it. Oh, we're not going to talk about it. We're not going to look at it.
Well, even before that, the recommendation to hire this person, despite the fact that they had failure, the recommendation to hire this person was made to the city council without the city council being informed that the drug test had been failed. And so they said, yeah, we approve this guy.
Okay, so what we're saying here is, if I'm going to go work for Public Works and I want to employ, and they come up and I'm positive for a drug test, I'm sorry, you can't work here because, you know, we have zero tolerance, or we have procedures you can go through and maybe apply later on.
Right.
Apparently, this individual walked in, no problem, and we're going to keep it quiet and hushed up. I now look at it and say, well, how come he gets in and I don't?
And the proper way to do it would be to say, well, this person failed a drug test. We have discussed it with him. We have discussed it with the doctor. He's been retested, so on and so forth. We feel comfortable with the hiring. And you just, you disclose the whole thing. And you explain why you're doing it. Now, then there's not a problem.
Now, getting back to the case now, the emails that were sent with regards to that case, and I think you got one of them. I know I got one of them. All right, saying that here was a case before the city. That was part of the PowerPoint presentation in prosecuting Sandy.
Right.
So that got sealed, but we already knew about it before it was sealed.
Yeah.
We knew it was in the paper.
But I'm sure there's more to this story. That's probably, I don't know if it's in the sealing of it or the decision, but why are we, why don't we just handle the problem? Why don't we look at the issue and say, why are we covering this up?
And Sandy wanted, and that was exactly Sandy's question.
Yeah.
She wanted to get this information out, and
or at least a discussion of it.
A discussion of it,
clear
right.
the air.
Yeah, and it's hard.
Well, here's the other thing, George. Yeah. It wasn't just Sandy that had gotten that information. Other aldermen had gotten that information, and they elected to just stick their head in the sand and say, "Oh, we're not gonna look at this. This is what whoever the upper management wants this to happen. This employee to be hired." Well, if you work in a corporate environment, it does not fly, and there is going to be a lot of firing going to go on. And I believe that's probably what the upper management in the city of Racine is worried about, is having some repercussions because of this.
Well, so here's where it gets really, we get down to the nuts here. All that information we know, it's there. It's in the court documents, it's in the emails, and it gets sealed. And part of the discovery process is to have it opened, but then that gets sealed also. So we have the sealing of a action by an individual to have an open records request, and that's where it gets really confusing to me. And I couldn't understand how could she possibly be held in contempt when everything that was in those records was already known.
Yeah,
so.
Well, I don't
know. At any rate,
George, you and I were both there, and I remember Gasker-Gevich saying, "Ms. Weidner, if I erred on sealing this case, the appeals court will correct that situation if that happens." I'm thinking, when does a judge ever say, I may have erred in my judgment? That never happens. When I heard that,
maybe on calling a football game score or something, but not anything in the court system. But you know what is interesting is Alderman Weidner was also the person who opened up the case of Machinery Row. She's the one who discovered, or well, maybe didn't discover, but she was the one who revealed to the rest of the city council that there was some shenanigans going on down at Machinery Row. The way that funding was structured,
right?
The way
the payment on the debt.
Yeah. Well, the payment to the people who owned the properties, and the fact that they were nicked for a 10% kickback, and that kickback created a slush fund whereby the developer was giving credit for paying his taxes and his mortgage payments, when in fact it was money that was basically extorted out of the sellers of the property.
And that was done, by the way, at City Council. That
was done on the floor of the City Council.
So there's a history of why some people who want things to be unknown to the public would dislike somebody like Alderman Sandy Weidner, because she is a responsible representative of the people, and she brings forth information that we should know.
Representative of the taxpayers who pays for it, which we can, move into the next one, because here is exactly why information should be put forth to the taxpayer.
Yeah.
This one alone.
This is the stuff that needs to be opened, and here it is back in the news now, Jim. You found some more stuff about Machinery Row. It's a never-ending story. Another layer of the onion.
The dead horse we love to beat.
What is it? We got another $7 million now?
Well, it's the year-end 2017 financial statements from the city of Racine, right out of their financial statements, and it comes up with a loss. This is on TID 18, $6,965,839. So almost $7 million loss on Machinery Row. $7 million.
Tax incremental district 18 and Machinery Row.
Now, if you take a ride down there, they're knocking down Machinery Row.
Yeah.
And they're asking now that for a bid for developers or a request for a plan. So what are we going to do with it now? And one of the things in this plan, it stated, well, the reason we're knocking them down is because the game's kind of changed with Foxconn, and we're going to need new construction. Before, it was fantastic tax credits. We can make this work. Now we're going to knock it down because we need new, because Foxconn's coming in. We need clean capped land so we can.
We're going to be swimming in cash.
Those were historic buildings for a little while, weren't they?
Yeah. For a little while. Only 105
when they're being
years.
redeveloped, yeah.
Well, and I'll tell you what, there's materials down there that went into the building of those buildings and into the construction of them that you don't find anymore. I mean, there are timbers down there.
Well, you won't find them anymore, that's for sure.
Yeah, what do they measure, like 16 by 16 or some of them?
They're white pine, some of that.
Oh, yeah. Beautiful wood.
But I guess the fact is...
I hope it's being recycled by somebody. I don't know who.
I don't know. You know, to try to keep up, it's hard to keep one step ahead of these guys because, and even in this proposal, it has to happen fast. It has to happen with national
urgency.
Yeah, it's
always urgent.
It's always got to go fast. Got to go fast. Got to knock it down. We got to get somebody in here because I'm going to tell you why. Because you need to cover up the shenanigans that went on. It's because you can make this scenario. Look what's happening on this Water Street property, not Machinery Row, Water Street now. Just like the arena, we're going to look over here. Don't look over here because there's a lot of fraud over here. And now we're looking at their numbers that say $7 million. Deficit, and we're going to tack on the relocation from those tenants that they tried to scurry around.
Oh, they're still trying to screw those people.
Yes, and there's still this demolition now of anywhere from $4 to $6 million.
You're not talking about the destruction of evidence now, are you, Jim?
There's a certain amount of evidence happening too. I mean, the thing is, I guess when it goes back to these emails, if you would start from the beginning, do the right thing. Just say, listen, we made a mistake, or we need to correct this mistake, or actually come up front and talk about it and make it public. You're going to find out that the taxpayer is going to say, okay, listen, we'll work with you. Don't hide and quit stealing the damn money.
Well, and I'll tell you what, the Azarians are a perfect example of that. They were approached by the city. The city wanted their property. The city gave them a detailed plan of what they wanted to do. And they were like, yeah, okay. Yeah, we can go along with that. Yeah, a little bit tired of the marina business anyway, blah, blah, blah. We can put our construction and concrete business somewhere else. Yeah, we can do that. We can sell this to you. They were very amenable to the whole transaction. And they were never told that the city was actually legally responsible to relocate them, to pay them to be relocated, and to actually supply them with a similar housing or a similar situation to what they had before.
Right.
They were never told that.
Right.
So they ended up over on Rapids, well, not on Rapids Drive, on Memorial Drive. I'll get it straight. On Memorial Drive, not too far from Rapids Drive. And they put a lot of their office workings in a temporary trailer, and then they went through the process. They were going to do some upgrades to it and so on and so forth. And the city, not only did they not inform them that they had rights to relocation assistance, they went over there and beat the crap out of them about this trailer.
Right. We had that on the show.
Yeah.
You're talking about adding insult to injury. That was it.
And here's the thing,
they had to move, and
they wonder why people aren't amenable to working with them.
Well, here it is. You've got RDA, which, again, is a private company. So when you talk about, in this proposal, it talks about the RDA as being a...
That's a redevelopment authority.
Redevelopment authority, a private company that owns Machinery Row. You don't own it. Taxpayers do not own it. And maybe they took $7 million of your money and utilized that, but you don't own it.
The redevelopment authority, just remember, everybody, is a specially set up organization. It looks like a subcommittee of the council, but it's not. It's set up by law to be an actual independent, on its own organization, and not only that, but it gets a couple $1 million a year of this intergovernmental fund. That was the water treatment agreement. So it's got a source of income, which should be taxpayers. It's getting buildings, which on its own. So anyway, go ahead, Jim. I just want to make everyone understand.
Another thing about them, though, is originally they were under at least the supervision of the city council. Whenever they wanted to make expenditures of some kind, they would come to the city council and get approved.
That's right.
And they were chafing under that idea.
They went for a long time with that, 10 years since its inception. But it was all just kind of a facade to make it look polite. And when it got down to some tough things that the council wanted to challenge, then it came out, we really don't need to go to you.
Right.
Yeah.
And they do. They have their own tax ID
and
number.
Scott Letney, the city attorney, came in and said, by law, we really don't have to. We have always just done it as a matter of politeness.
Okay, but I got a question.
Politeness.
So, if you left Machinery Row alone, the buildings down there, the businesses were in there, I mean, they were functioning, say, listen, guys, if at some point maybe a developer wants to come down here and look at this riverfront and you can work with them or whatever. They spent $7 million to acquire this illegally, fraudulently. If we had that $7 million today, and it would have still been functioning down there as it was before, would we or would we not be better off?
Well, I say we'd be better off because we have the $7 million, but the chances of it sitting there is very limited. It just doesn't happen. The government sits on that and keeps it. The only way to get around it that I see is you need to set up some type of a citizens council, away from politics, away from favoritism, away from wheeling and dealing, and work it that way. Because this fund coming in has just been wasted on project after project after project. It's just amazing how they've blown through that. If 10 years,
isn't the city council supposed to be like a citizens?
Well, it's supposed to be citizens representative, but unfortunately, they don't. The aldermen except for a couple, they just don't know what's going on within the government and some of these other activities going on surrounding the city, and I don't know. It's really, really hard to figure out how would Jim, it's fine to say that we wouldn't, if we hadn't spent it on Machinery Row, would we be better off? Maybe we just get blown someplace else.
What if we blew it on something for the citizens?
Well, that would be nice. At least do that.
Yeah, I'm looking at it like this. The Democrats are always, we have to work for the community and the citizens and health care, all this stuff. But here's the fact: all that money is some way to give it to a corporate entity to make them rich. It doesn't do anything. I don't see it. I mean, you got Johnson's put in a pool. I mean, why can't the city of Racine put a sports complex together? I mean, what have you done for the youth in this community? I mean, you want crime? Yeah, you got them all lined up to run into jail, line them up and prosecute them.
A nice, relatively new jail over there, Memorial Drive for the kids.
This is what you do. You built a jail, and then you fill the jail.
Yeah.
But you don't do anything at the other end. So what have you done? $7 million you absolutely squandered, and it's probably going to be closer to $20 million on just that project alone. And what are you going to do when a developer shows up? How much of the farm are you going to give them then? It just doesn't end. And how are we doing on debt, George?
Well, it's still around the $100 million mark. And according to this report, this financial report, the balance sheet is $12 million worse right now from last year.
Yeah, but we're going to be picking up momentum soon, because I remember Mayor Dickert had a plan. Where eventually, remember they drew that chart and it was like projected to go down to zero at some point in time?
I remember the chart. Let's see,
lines on paper.
Yeah, it's it was a.
But we're going in the wrong direction, huh?
Yeah,
probably just a temporary setback. It's Corey Mason's fault. If John Dickert was still in office, everything would be great, right?
Yeah, right.
And that's what this was.
Oh, that's the chart.
There it is. Yeah.
See, here's proof it's going down. Didn't see the little gray part up here though that said make sure it gets refilled. It's a real shame the way the funds are squandered in this city, and it would sure make a big difference to taxpayers and the tax-paying business community too. I mean, our tax rate is double that of Mount Pleasant and Sturtevant, and Caledonia, and triple Sturtevant, and so when a business comes into this area, they're kind of going to want to go that way because it's cheaper to operate in Mount Pleasant and Caledonia than it is to operate.
Yeah, it's just
in
poor
Racine.
business. It's been run as
Unless
a
we
poor
give them a
business.
tax incremental district,
Yeah,
you know.
and
And of course, the choices we've made there, I don't know, they don't seem to have really resulted in a lot. We got the mall. The mall didn't get a lot, though. What,
no,
$3,400? Uptown neighborhood, they got 55, almost 56,000. Porters, 26, almost 27,000. And Uptown Business Development, that's $250,000. And then what's 18? That's Machinery Row,
that's
isn't it?
Machinery Row, yeah.
6,965,000. Man, that's
From tens of thousands to millions in Machinery Row. That's just been a
that's the
a
big
real
cow in the
squander.
barn.
And here's the argument that's going to come up is say, wow, we're going to recoup that on taxes when these great developments happen, and we're going to
Yeah.
If you start to break down what you're going to collect on taxes over this TID period and what you're going to actually get back, don't do anything. Stop. Quit digging. Quit digging the hole.
Well, yeah, and
It's just, you can't. The numbers cannot work. You can't make these work.
Well, a tax incremental district, I kind of like. What
Yeah,
it does is you got some vacant land there. Let's say it's worth $100,000, and a company comes in and they say, okay, we want to start this up. Well, right now, at that point, the city is getting taxes on $100,000. If they put a $6 million plant on it, that is an immediate increase in taxes. And all the deal is that the additional taxes that we would have collected on that building are put off. In other words, it's allowed to go back to the company to help them build that company, and then after so many years, then the city will collect the full amount of
What are
taxes.
those?
Well,
How many
it's-
years is that
it's
usually?
Well, they're 20, 30 years.
Okay.
But the point is that if no company could afford to come in there and develop on the land, then you're still only getting the tax on the vacant land.
We're getting no tax now.
Well,
Yeah.
if you do get a tax, because it gets assessed, remember this.
Well,
way.
it's owned by the RDA.
Well, no. Once the RDA owns it,
Yeah, that's what I mean.
I'm talking
Yeah.
something like
A private owner's
who
Indiana-
owns the old Jacobson? Is that owned by the redevelopment authority? Or is that still?
Yeah. No, they own it.
Do they own that too?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
But if they didn't own it, if it had stayed in private hands,
or
and let
maybe
the
that
market
just
work.
got sold. That may have just got sold.
The point
Yeah,
is,
they were
yeah,
talking
yeah.
about that happening.
vacant land, wherever it is, if it's not screwed up by the redevelopment authority, if it stays in the hands of the city and just sits there vacant, it doesn't stay in the hands of the city. Sorry, it stays in the hands of private individuals. Regardless of what that individual does, they could go bankrupt, they could leave the scene, but it still stays in their name. So the city still gets, still assesses it. The county pays for it, gives the city their money.
So that comes out of our left pocket.
That comes out of our left pocket, but they get that money, and the county treasurer is doing pretty well. They net out a profit in the interest they collect on it, the properties they foreclose on. They're doing all right. The treasury there. But the point is that that's all that the government collects on that is the tax on the land.
Right.
So a company comes in and you set up this tax incremental district that allows the company to build on it, improve on it, and for a while there they only pay the taxes on
Okay,
the
George,
land.
but
And
now,
it goes up incrementally. That's why it's an incremental district.
Right.
right, but if you're into this piece of property for $20 or $30 million, and now you're putting it as a TID for another company, how is that going to be profitable?
It's when the TID ends.
Yeah, when the TID
That's what
ends,
happened in
20 or 30
Sturtevant. When Sturtevant's TID finally came
Yeah, but
due,
you're
all of a sudden everybody's taxes dropped by about 50%.
Yeah.
They had a huge tax decline because the TID came due.
Okay, but what I'm saying is, you're talking 20 or 30 years from now. Plus, now you're talking you're still talking a debt to the community at this stage of $20 million. Put this together. I just don't see that in 20 years.
Well, theoretically, now you're talking about Foxconn now. In an
Well-
actual TID, the city doesn't have to come up with any money.
I know they don't,
All
but
they-
they've already buried themselves.
Well,
$20 million
but what they
there.
can do now is they can lose money on one TID and they can borrow from another TID that's profitable if
Okay.
it hasn't ended.
We
See,
can
so
have a lot
now
of
they get to shift TIDs around.
Okay.
Wait a minute.
So now
wait a
they
minute.
are
How do you
investing.
borrow from another TID? How does that work?
Because a TID could be making money. In other words,
Finally could make money, yeah.
The incremental, the tax that
How have we
they're
been,
giving back.
the city of Racine, how's it worked on TID districts?
Yeah,
in the
we
city of
got any
Racine?
that are?
Yes. Matter of fact, there are some that were profitable. They cover their costs, and rather than, they get extensions on the TID, so they can continue to use the
I'm a
money.
little bit familiar with them,
Yeah.
and I realize that.
It gets very complicated, but and unfortunately, politics is played in the thing,
Yeah.
and so that's why it gets kept under wraps.
But here's the other. I got one other thing. I know we got to get going here, but I got one other thing. If obviously Machinery Road turned into a huge issue financially for the citizens of Racine. They did this fraudulently. Everybody knows it was done fraudulently. There should be people that should be held accountable for that. What stops them from doing further dealings like they did on Machinery Road?
Talking Racine.
Not much,
that's about
except
it.
they're using up that intergovernmental fund.
Yeah.
That $2 million.
yeah.
But I mean, there's nothing here. The
Right now
citizens
they're
have-
borrowing on it. As
Yeah.
a matter of fact, I understand they're putting out a mortgage, but they know they got another 15 years on it.
Yeah.
So there's another $30 million coming in, and unfortunately, they're mortgaging now the future of that fund.
Right.
And so now we're just about guaranteed for at least the next 5 years, we're not going to be doing any community projects, Jim.
Yeah, it'll come
Right. Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that's the
Well, I hope we brightened your morning,
yeah.
and I hope you have a wonderful day. Don't think about this too much. It'll all go away.
Yeah.
No, keep a vigilant eye. We'll stay in touch. We'll keep you informed. Everything that we learn, we will share with you. And we look forward to meeting again with you next week. Thank you.